Right, welcome back, and to shed light on our topic tonight and the industrial sector, this very important segment of our economy. We have with us tonight Dr. Ayyoub, Mahmoud Ayyoub, former plenipotentiary Minister of Trade, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening to you and to the viewers.
Thank you so much. And let me take here how you view this very important segment of the Egyptian economy, the industry, and the importance of supporting industry at this very particular time.
Its importance stems from the fact that we can increase in agriculture production within certain limits. That is decided by the water availability. But when it comes to industry in a country like Egypt, with a lot of resources, whether mineral resources, natural resources, or human resources, sky is the ceiling when we come to industry. So there is a lot which can be done in this sector, and its share in the economy is increasing, steadily increasing. This means that there is good work done on the ground. When we see that the president himself is taking care of the industry and the industrial establishments and investment and the investment law, and also the giving preferences to the new projects and to new investors, this means that the state or the country or the president are keen to see tangible results to the preferences given to industrial people or industrialists or those who are coming to venture in this sector in Egyptian economy. This is one thing. The other thing is that we have industries since, let's say, the mid-50s, new industry in Egypt, which helped Egypt during its difficult times in 67. And from 67 to 73, who hold the backbone of the economy? It was industry, which is something we cannot forget and we cannot ignore. So industrial production in Egypt is vital, very important, and it is job creating sector, and also it increases the national income and per capita when we come to the whole population of Egypt. That is one thing. Other thing is that many new, let's say, graduates of the universities and of schools, public schools and technical schools, they are looking to industry, not to other sectors. And we encourage them for training and retraining for them to cope with the basic needs, today's needs of the market. So training, retraining of the graduates of the university and making them able to cope with the market needs helps a lot when we come to trained labor force, which is big enough in Egypt, and we can, part of it is used locally and another part is exported to other countries, whether Arab region or African countries, which creates income for the national economy. So there is a lot to speak about as far as industry is concerned, especially when the president himself is taking care and giving and listening to what investors need and create. We had the economic conference just a couple of in February this year. I think yes, February this year, in which the president himself listened to what they need and promised that everything which will facilitate and increase the participation of industry in the economy will be paved, and we are seeing the results these days. The new projects which we are seeing, new economic zones in the whether in Suez Canal area or in Upper Egypt, that's South Egypt, is concerned. When we see all that is happening, this will result, it needs time. And people who are working in industry know that every new industry needs time to have production. And another important dimension is, so we are not only trying to satisfy the local needs of our market, but also are looking at the same time to the foreign markets. that is to exports, because exports finance imports, and exports create job opportunities, and exports, there is a lot which can be done as far as exports are concerned, because many new industries are created taking in consideration what the consumer in certain foreign markets is concerned, what they need, and how to satisfy their needs from the local production. When we come to the location of Egypt and the availability of fuel or energy, this
No.
means that
Yes, but let's just divide what you've said, sir, because you're speaking about the whole economy,
yes,
and I'm here in particular speaking about the industry sector.
yes,
So indeed, the president has already called for increasing exports in order to minimize the gap between exports and imports for different reasons, among them definitely foreign currency and all this. When we get back to facilities, because the government has worked on putting the industry in the forefront, particularly to be able to put some of the projects or the medium-sized and small-sized projects in parallel to mega projects which are being carried out by the state. How do you view the facilities that are given or that are provided by the government for the industrial sector? How do you assess those facilities that are given, and what is more needed?
facilitation and facilities given to new industries and investors is vital for the for economy as a whole. When we see that, they were complaining, the investors were complaining about certain points, which they highlighted, and they defined what they need. And when the government is coping with and responding to their needs, this means that this facilitation is helping the industry to localize in Egypt, more industries. When we see the car, for example, we can increase our share in the production of the car. That is the percentage of the local production of the parts of the car. I cannot produce the car as a whole, but I can produce a greater part of it every year. This is one thing. If we look to another...
So here you're speaking about components.
Yes, components. I speak about the components.
Okay.
Which we have experience in this, and good experience since mid-60s when they began to produce El Nasser cars. And that is, we see that there is a good base for the expansion of localization and increasing the national product as far as industry is concerned, or the share of industry in the economy. When we look, for example, we have mineral resources. When we see that the government is taking care of value addition of the mineral resources which we have, this means that new factories should be and are being established now to make use of what we have, like for manganese, for phosphates, and so on. When we see this happening, this means that the government is focusing on industry to increase the national product and to increase the per capita, and also to absorb a bigger proportion of the new unemployed, that is to increase employment in the country. It is very important, and facilitation is very important, and there are of course complications for here and from the administrative organizations or from the bureaucracy. But what is happening now is bureaucracy is now taking a step back, and what is a step forward for pragmatic approach to what is needed today in the industry, and this is what the government is keen to know, to do, and to follow up to ensure that what is the directions of the president are already implemented on the ground. This is very important, whether for industry or for new investors who are coming to Egypt with a market of 104 million, I do not say person, but rather consumers. This is something which is attractive to many new industries who are coming from overseas. They know that we have access to other markets in the area, and they create their presence in the Egyptian market using the natural resources which we have.
The government has been working on strengthening its partnership with the private sector.
Yes.
And with the business community, businessmen, in order to have the what they encounter of challenges, provide some of the solutions. The government has also put some of the industrial complexes in order to facilitate the business opportunities, particularly in the industrial field, as you said, respectively, across all the governorates of Egypt. How do you view how this has been an attract to investors in industry? What opportunities do Egypt have, particularly that the president has been calling for investors to come seek or to find their opportunity existing in Egypt, which are enormous?
When we see that the government is giving a roadmap and presenting projects which can be established in Egypt, and giving details of each project which is envisaged, or it hopes it will be attractive to the investors, this means that they come and know beforehand what is needed in this market, and accordingly they can look to which is more lucrative to them, and they can localize industries, especially when we see that the hurdles which have been there for some time now are being paved one by one. This is one thing. Other thing is that when we have an investment law which is clear in encouraging new investors and the Egyptian investors to increase their investment in localization of industry, which is very important, whether for industry or for agro-industries, because there is a lot which we can do as far as also as agro-industries is concerned, and this is a big area which many investors are coming to invest in agro-industry, because we have local production of agricultural products which can be not only industrial and mineral resources, but rather also agricultural products which can be exported at a higher value when it is using the modern technology to cope with the needs of the consumer in Europe or America or Arab countries or in African countries. So investment in Egypt is lucrative, whether for the local investors, Arab investors, or foreign investors. When we say investment, we look to the local market. Why, for example, give an example. Why did the Chinese industry develop very quickly? Because they have a local market of 1.5 billion consumers. This is a big market. So it developed very quickly. We have the same thing here on our scale. A big market in Egypt and a big consumer market, it is very important, and with the availability of natural resources, mineral resources, and also agricultural resources, which you already have, because when we look to the weather in Egypt and the weather in Europe, we find that there is advantage, comparative advantage for the Egyptian producers when they are exporting to European market, and this is a big area for would-be investors to come and invest in areas which use the comparative advantage or competitive advantage which Egypt has as far as agricultural products or components for the industry.
Competitiveness. You pinpointed your finger on a very important issue. Since we're speaking about industry, then we have to address competitiveness, because the world, if we need to increase our exports, then we need to find how to be equal to competitors worldwide. So how are we doing on that, and how are we preparing for our industries to such a challenge?
Competitiveness is the password for the industry when it comes whether are looking to the local market or the foreign markets. When we see that the Egyptian exports to Africa, for example, are competing with other more in the highly developed countries, this means that we have competitive industries, but we need to always cope with the needs of the market and be in the market for a long time. Being in the market for a long time gives experience what is needed today and what will be needed tomorrow, not after 1 year, but rather tomorrow. So this means that competitive is very important for us. Part of the competitive, I have two parts: the quality of product and the cost. I did not say price. It is cost. When we see that we have maritime lines, and we should create maritime lines to African countries, for example, which will facilitate our exports. So competitiveness needs a lot of groundwork, whether in the industry or in the navigation or in the maritime transportation, or the manpower which you have should be up to the standard which enable them to have higher productivity of the quality needed by this or that market.
You said the cost, not the price.
Yes, of course.
What does this mean?
It makes a lot of difference, a lot of difference. The cost includes the price, the time, the quality, when you see the cost, because all these components together create what the word cost. But the price is the price which you put how many dollars for the piece. But the cost, how long will it take to deliver this market, this commodity or product to the market? This is a part of the cost. If we are not able to supply the product which I have in the right time, so it is very expensive. It will not be exported. So the cost is very important when it comes to the foreign markets and also for the local market. When we see that we have open foreign trade, we don't have hurdles to or we don't have problems for the foreign trades and the imports. But for our products to compete in the local market, it should be of the quality and the price which makes the local consumer prefers it to the foreign
to the
foreign
competing products.
Yes, we have
Worldwide.
competing products in many areas. When we see that they are competing, whether in the Egyptian market or in the foreign markets, this means that we have competitive advantage in certain areas. We can expand it. We can expand in certain areas, and as we know, when we export product successfully to a market, we can export another product to the same market.
There is this issue that I asked you, sir, about cost to price, because this takes us to localizing industry. And the President has given instructions for localizing some of our industries, particularly components that we can really make here in Egypt, for this issue of the costs.
It is an important issue. As I mentioned, we will not be able to produce all the components of, for example, of the car. We cannot. And should
not
focus.
The car in particular.
Yes.
The car is just an example, right?
It is just an example.
Yes.
Many other things, of course.
Yes, of
Many other
course.
things. When we focus on a certain part of production cycle, and expand it, have more experience it, and expand this certain part, this gives me advantage. For example, I'll give you another example. Certain industries are power or energy intensive. They need a lot of energy or power or electricity. Egypt had the gas, and we have a surplus in electrical power. So many industries can come to Egypt. This part of the industry can come to Egypt, and it is a technology transfer investment to make use of the availability and stable availability, which is very important. We see what is happening in Ukraine and the supply of gas from Russia to the Western Europe. Some industries can come and localize in Egypt in this area where they can ensure a stable source of gas or petrol or energy for their industry, or this part or this small part of the production process, not all the
You mean
process.
here, as I understand, that the Westerners or foreign big companies and facilities and can bring up their projects here in Egypt, whatever they are speaking about, because they will find the conducive atmosphere to start their industry here with regard to energy and with regard to other issues, right? This is what we are speaking about.
Yes, this is what exactly what I mean, because we can expand in this area. We can increase the value
and it's
addition.
a win-win situation, by the way.
So it is a win-win situation for them and for us, for the foreign investors and for the Egyptian economy as a whole. And you have a relative advantage in the, or comparative advantage in this area, thanks to the availability of the energy in Egypt. And also there is a manpower, good manpower in Egypt, who is able to support such projects. And of course it needs training or retraining, but in all cases the foreign investor, they are complaining about the availability of power or gas. For example, we export gas. Egypt exports gas, and Egypt we have abundant resources of whether gas or petrol, which many fuel intensive companies are looking for and are coming to Egypt, and should be encouraged on a wider scale to come and establish presence in Egypt, thanks to the consistency, availability, consistency, and the stable environment in which they are working. Egypt is stable in many areas compared to, let's say, Europe, and this is a big area which can also we can capitalize on when we are attracting new investors to come to Egypt to establish a presence, maybe whether in the Suez Canal zone or even in the Western Desert.
Before I speak about how Egypt is really encouraging investors as for the medium and small enterprises and startups and entrepreneurs and all this, if I am an investor and I want to come and invest in Egypt in an industrial zone, because lots of complexes exist here in Egypt, and that is what the government has been working on for some times, and the Ministry of already Trade and Industry has been reviewing this part, of course, instructed by the leadership and followed by the leadership. If I am an investor, beside definitely the energy that exists, the manpower that exists, what opportunities do I have here in Egypt for me to come and invest in a certain industry?
Beside the energy and the manpower, the laws which are
No, I'm speaking about opportunities, existing
Opportunities. Well, good. We have a big market, big local market. Second, access to other markets thanks to the preferential trade agreements which are concluded between Egypt, whether bilateral or multilateral, between Egypt, African countries, and Arab countries. So this is
We
another.
have multilateral
Yes.
trade agreements, yes, indeed.
This is another area which not only can all the country have this facility. We have this advantage, weather or location, the multilateral and the bilateral trade agreements, availability of manpower and and energy, as I mentioned, and also the laws governing investment, a new investment in Egypt. When we find that the president himself is taking care, that should make it easier for investors to come to localize and create a presence, even for the components or part of any production cycle.
Yes. Promotional programs, because the government has been putting very interesting promotional programs. And there was this recent one, Ibda Sort. How do you view such promotional programs that have been made by the government, and how do you view the aim of them?
The government is have a clear vision on what is needed for the economy. This is very important. This clear vision is translated in roadmap for new industries, and also the details of each project which is needed, and the area and the location and the production process which is needed in this or in that industry. This is one thing. Other thing which is very important, when you find that the industries who are coming to Egypt to make use of the components, the considerations which I mentioned, are also looking that they have a big local market which can absorb, or they can try the products in the local market and then export. Some of them are coming, which we have seen lately, for a certain part of the production process. They have it in Egypt and they export this part to Europe again to be a part of another production cycle for this or that company. Many companies are coming to Egypt thanks to the location, availability of manpower, as I mentioned, the power, and also the big market, and also easy access to the foreign markets which are near or far from Egypt. That is, easy access is very important for the industries, for certain industries which are making, especially when they are making use not only of the manpower in Egypt, but also of the mineral resources and natural resources which we have in Egypt, which is very important for them, which are not available in other countries.
Very much indeed. Unfortunately, I have to end it here because we have to look into our other features of the episode. Dr. Mahmoud Ayyoub, plenipotentiary, former plenipotentiary Minister of Trade, we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. And I guess now we leave you to this report by our colleague Manel Ibiari on the business news that took place during the week, most important news, and I guess that will take us to the end of the episode. Many thanks for watching.